Shrishtam Manamapi Shachiputram Atra Swarupam Rupam Tasyagrajam Uripurim Maturim Goshtavaptim Radha Kundam Kirivaram Aho Radhika Madhuvasam Prapto Yasya Pratita Kripaya Sri Guru Tamanatosmi Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Nama Ananda Leelamaya Vigrahaya Hema Badibhyatschave Sundaraya Tasmai Mahaprema Rasa Pradaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Bhaktya Vina Aparada Lakshe Chiltasta Kaman Brinde Namaste Chalarvinda Govinda Damodaram Hey Krishna, Hey Adava, Hey Govinda Damodara Madhave Sham Sundar Shikanda Shekhara Smaraha Murali Manada Radhikara Sakamama Kripanidhe Swapriyachana Kinkurim Kuru Tavaivasmi, na jivami tvayamana, jivikaya devi tam, nayamam charanatikam. First of all, I offer my Sastan Dandavat Pushpanjali, my heart like flowers thousands of times at the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmatiya Paramaradhatama Guru Pada Padma, Nitlila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad, Ashtotara Sata Sri Rupanugacharya Varya, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Param Gurudev, to Srila Prabhupada and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, Vanchakalpataru Vaishnava.
Shri Gurudeva ki.
By the courseless mercy of Sri Gauran Gauranga, we are hearing how Srila Jiva Goswami Pad, he is presenting and comparing two paths. One path is the Vichar Pradan Marg, the path which is predominated by analytical study and philosophical discrimination. And the Ruchi Pradan Marg, the path which is predominated by taste for hearing Harikatha from the lips of pure devotees. Remember, the context here is the Pravesh Dwara, That means the preliminary steps that will lead eventually to the direct experience of the true Swarup of pure bhakti. So yesterday, we were discussing how in the Vichar Pradan Marg, first of all, by associating with specific type of devotees, a person develops a taste. Here, Ruchi does not mean Ruchi after Nishta, but only an interest, an affinity, a preference for a particular form of the Lord, and also for a particular way of worshipping that form of the Lord as well. And the type of preference that develops, it corresponds to the type of sadhu we are associating with. So, this initial interest, this initial ruchi, this initial fascination enables that soul whose mind was distracted in many subjects, whose mind was distracted in chasing after so many different objectives in this world. Now he begins to focus his mind on this form of the Lord. So, now some hunger comes. I want to hear more. I want to learn more. And then he begins to study from in the association of those devotees and study and analyze the scriptures according to the Sadlin. So yesterday we discussed these 6 points, Upakram, Upasangha, and so on. And we gave the example. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam and the end of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Satyam Param Dhimahi. We meditate on the supreme truth. It is there in the beginning and the end. The question comes, Satyam Param Dhimahi, what is that Param Satyam? So by studying the Shastra, such as Bhagavad Gita, then the devotee comes to know that, oh, look here, in chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, there Krishna says, Yogi nam api sarvesham madgatein antratmana sarvam bhajateyo mam same yuktatamo mata. Out of all the yogis, that yogi who is with great faith serving me within the core of his heart, I consider him to be the highest of all yogis. So then the devotee takes that point. What is the highest truth? Well, it says here that the best yogi is meditating on Krishna. So Krishna must be the highest truth. He continues to study Bhagavad Gita. In chapter 12, Arjun poses the question, hey Krishna, who is superior? The one who worships the avyakta, the impersonal aspect of the truth, or the one who worships vyakta, the personal aspect of the truth? See, Krishna says, Klesha adhikataras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam. Those persons whose minds are attached to the impersonal form, they are the impersonal aspect with no form. They are the adhikaris for klesh. They will suffer so much. It's an extremely difficult path. Those who worship my personal form, they are best, and I quickly deliver them from the ocean of birth and death. I wonder what Satyam Param Dhimahi means. As he goes on reading, he will hear from the Vaishnavas. Krishna has said, Mata prataram nanyat kinchidasti jananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre maniganahiva. Hey Arjun, there is no truth superior to me. It sounds like Satyam Param Dhimahi. Hey Arjun, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung upon a thread. And then just in case, he was thinking, but maybe, because some teachers, they say that, yes, this argument between personalists and personalists, this is only duality and foolishness, because the personal feature and the impersonal feature, they are the same, it's the same level, they're equal. So equality, democracy. It's very appealing to the modern person. Yeah, the impersonal and the personal, it's all the same. Like Vivekananda and Krishnamurti and others, they presented this idea. So, that is more driven from the idea that everyone, we should stop arguing and get along with each other. You know? Not actually the search for truth. So, then the devotee hears from Bhagavad Gita that Brahmanohi patishtaha mamritasya avayasacha shashvatasya dharmasya sukantai kasya cha. Krishna said, I am the basis of the Brahman. So no, the light of Brahman and the personal form of Krishna, they are not equal. Krishna is the basis of Brahman. Krishna said, I am the basis, shashvatasya, of eternity. Amritasya, of immortality. Avyayasya, of unchanging reality. Dharmasya sukantai kasya cha. And I am the basis of the dharma of the highest eternal happiness. So in this way, the devotee is listening, and gradually he's collecting the ling from the Shastra and his gurus. That means they are at this point like many Shravan gurus. He may be hearing from many persons. And as he's hearing, then two things are going on. The removal of asambhavana and viparita bhavana. And you can experience it for yourself. It's a very wonderful thing. When an advanced Vaishnava is speaking, then as he's speaking, just like magic, whatever asambhavana and viparita bhavana is there in the minds of the listeners, it's being wiped away. Asambhavana means impossibility. If something is asambhav, it's impossible. So, sometimes a person is listening and they hear something. Oh, the supreme truth is a person with form. How is that possible? The ultimate reality, the source of everything, has pastimes. You know, when a person is coming in the line of activity, they think, how can the metaphysical origin of all existence have pastimes? Yeah? Well, you have pastimes. And you're not the origin of everything. Are you trying to say you have something that the origin, the all-powerful supreme origin of all things doesn't have? That would make you more supreme in that respect. So gradually, a person, they have in their mind asambhavana. Oh, how can a 7-year-old boy lift a mountain on his little finger for 7 days and nights? But as the person starts to hear about the Swarup of Krishna, how he is Shaktiman, he has unlimited Shaktis. The only reason that you cannot lift the mountain on your little finger for 7 days is because of his Shakti. His Shakti gives things, imparts Vastu Shakti to things. So each object has its own power, and the mountain has the power of heaviness. And that's why you can't lift it. So you can't lift the mountain because of his power. And if he wants to make it light, who made it heavy can make it light. It's not a big thing. Only we project our very limited experience. That is called kusanskar. We project the kusanskar, our experience of material life, onto the subject of God. And this creates in our mind asambhavana, a sense that this is impossible. But what happens as we are listening to Harikatha from pure devotees, all this asambhavana is being washed away. And the other aspect is viparita bhavana. Viparita bhavana means that we have some idea about God or about reality, which is viparita. That means it's the opposite of what is true. So we can call viparita bhavana misconception. But asambhavana is also a kind of misconception. So asambhavana is the idea that something is impossible for God, or this truth of Shastra is not possible. And viparita bhavana is we have an idea about the Shastra that we accept, but our idea is opposite. It's incorrect. So by hearing and doing the manan, by doing vichar. Vichar means deliberating on the sadling, the 6 indicatory symptoms of Shastra, then gradually all asambhavana and viparita bhavana becomes removed from the mind of that person. So then, when the asambhavana and the viparita bhavana have been removed, a wonderful thing happens. The devotee develops a shraddha, a faith, that this form of the Lord, this particular form of the Lord that I am hearing about, that these devotees are worshipping, this is called the Avirbhav Vishesh. Avirbhav Vishesh, a particular manifestation of God. The devotee begins to think that this Avirbhav Vishesh, this particular form of God, is Sada, Sarvada, it is Sarvada, Sarvatra, Sarvasmin. It is forever and everywhere and in everything. And even this form of God is present within every other form of God. So, going step by step, first, by association, some ruchi, interest comes. Then he becomes eager to hear more. As he hears more, he deliberates on the sadling of the Shastra. The sadling of the Shastra, by deliberating on this, the asambhavana and the viparita bhavana, impossibility and the opposite conception, inverted conception, they're all removed. And when these are removed, he has now a faith that this particular form of the Lord, my Avirbhav Vishesh, is the Sarvada, eternal, Sarvatra, everywhere and in everything. And even though many people talk about God, all of those forms of God are included in my form of God. This faith comes. So then, as this faith grows, then the faith becomes samulasita. Samulasita. It begins to swell. How does this faith begin to swell? Now that devotee has come to this stage of understanding in regard to his Avirbhav Vishesh, his faith swells because he begins to think that my Ishtadev, he has the Nija Abhishta Dan Samarthya. Nija Abhishta Dan Samarthya. In other words, what I desire, the goal of my life, he has Dan Samarthya. He is capable of giving that to me. And so his Shraddha becomes samulasita. It becomes overflowing. It increases, it swells up in his heart. Oh, my Ishtadev, my Avirbhav Vishesh is a Nija Bishta Dan Samarthya. Samarthya means the capability. He has the capability to charitably bestow upon me my innermost heart's desire. And not only that, but Atishai Vatta. Atishai Vatta means to the extreme degree. Now this point is very interesting, because he thinks God can have many forms, but all those forms, they're included in the form of God I am worshipping. And even though these other forms of God are capable of giving benedictions to their devotees, but the form I am worshipping is the Atishai Vatta. Atishai Vatta. That means to the excessive and ultimate degree, he can fulfill my desires. He's most capable. Now, Srila Jiva Goswami Pad, he makes a very beautiful statement here, which is something that we should bear in mind when we're interacting with the Vaishnavas of other lines or of other, especially of other sampradayas. And that is that the ultimate supreme competence to bestow the highest benefit on an individual cannot exist in every form of God. It cannot. Because all the forms of God are not on the same level. It can only exist in one. So those forms of God that are angsa and kala, angsa means partial manifestations of God, and kala, angsas of angsas, parts of parts. They are not so competent in bestowing benedictions as the origin of all the angsas and kalas. Ete changsa kala pungsa, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So only one form can be, and we know who that is. And everyone knows who it is. My Ishtadev. So everyone thinks that it's their Ishtadev which is the most competent. So Srila Jiva Goswami Pad, he says that even though the most competence can only exist in one original form, that means Swayam Bhagavan, and that is Krishna, and even Krishna himself. In Dwarka, he's Purna. In Mathura, he's Purnatara, and only in Braj, he's Purnatama. He is supremely complete. So the supreme competence can only exist actually in Krishna, in Braja. However, if any devotee is worshipping any other form and he thinks that my Ishtadev has the supreme confidence to give the highest thing, this is not included in an apasiddhanta or anything like this. It's not an offense. It's not included in it's not a defect which will stop him from progressing in his bhakti. We can say from the perspective of what is known as, our acharya is called Tatastha Vichar. From the Tatastha Vichar, from the neutral standpoint, you can compare each. And we can say that Krishna is more competent than others. But from the Vichar of a devotee who is fully absorbed in that one Ishtadev, his taste is in that Ishtadev. He does not have tastes for other things. And therefore, what might be offered by another form of God will not give him the happiness, as much happiness as that for which he has tastes. Because his sanskars are in that Ishtadev. And therefore, any offering of another form which is even higher, he will not have taste in it, so it won't give him the same kind of happiness. Even though from the Tatastha point of view, Yatotaram aso swada visheshula samayapi rati vasanaya swadri basate kapi kasyachit. In Bhakti Samrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami has directly written that Yatotaram aso swadri, that Dasya gives more vishesh ulas, more intense experience of ananda than Shantaras. And Sakya gives more vishesh ulas amay api. It gives the aswad vishesh ulas, a more intense joy in tasting than Dasya, and Vatsalya more, and Madhurya rasa more. This is true. However, Rati Vasanaya Swadvi, any particular rati or staiba, foundational emotion, is relishable to the individual devotee based on his basana. So here basana means the samskars, the vishesh sanskar, intense impressions which have been impressed upon his heart by the type of sadhus he's associated with. And this is why the instruction is there, Sajataya Sheis Digdei Sadhu Sangha Swato Bare. Associate with Vaishnavas who are Sajatya. The innermost region of their heart is established in the type of love for which we are aspiring to attain. So Sajatya is in the same jati, the same category, the same universal category. So, otherwise, what will happen? There are three possibilities. Number one, if a person does not associate with a Vaishnava who has realization, who has rati, who has bhav, who has the gada sanskara, deep impressions of their sthai bhav, then you will not have any vasana yourself, rati vasana yourself, and then you will not have taste in any particular mood. So you can see it often happens. The devotees practicing for many years, but it's all good. Right? Lord Ram, worshipping Sita Ram, Jagannath, Nrsingadev, and it's all good. They don't discriminate between any favoritism towards one or another. Of course, it's all good. We glorify all forms of the Lord. But only one form should be one's Ishtadev. And that should be the focus of all sadhana. So, the first case is, if you don't associate with someone who has rati, then you will not develop any vasana, so you don't have attraction to any. The second case, if you associate with Vaishnavas who have different types of rati, then you develop mixed vasanas. And due to having a mixture of vasana, again, you'll not be fixed in attraction to any single form. And therefore the injunction is there, Sajataya Shaisnigde Sadhusanga Swatobare. Associate with those in one mood, so you can develop one type of vasana, and then you'll have one type of ruchi, one type of taste. So, here, Jiva Goswami Pad, having a very liberal perspective, which is entirely congruent to the nature of reality, that is, that only one form of the Lord is most capable to give the highest thing. But still, if a person thinks my Ishtadev is the most capable, but it's not Krishna of Vrindavan, it's not a fault for that particular person. So, the next point in the development. When a person gets the taste and attraction to one Avirbhav Vishesh, special manifestation of the Lord, he will now take up a particular kind of practice. So even though there may be devotees worshipping the same form of the Lord, they may not all worship Him in the same way. Why? Because the upasana, it may be Vedic, it may be Tantric, or it may be a Mishrit. It may be a mixture of Vedic and Tantric. And Sri Krishna has explained in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that these are all good. You can worship according to your taste. So we'll see, even among devotees who have the same Ishtadev, there can be some Vaishishta or specialities in their upasana, the way in which they worship. It may be Vedic, maybe Tantric, or maybe mixed to varying degrees also, according to their taste. Acha. So, now, Shri Radha Shyamasundara ki jai. Another point is that in the Shruti, in the Upanishads, it is said Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana means that you should do very profound contemplation upon your object of worship. And therefore, the point is that whether a person is following Vedic Upasana or Tantric or mixed Upasana, everything that the devotee is doing should be accepted as Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana. That means filled with a desire for profound contemplation. So it should not be done mechanically. I am waving the incense. Now it's time to ring the bell and move the fan. Nothing should be done only mechanically, but rather everything which is done. One's japa, one's singing of bhajans, one's worshipping of the deity, one's performance of parikrama, it should all be done as a profound contemplation on the object of love. So now, we come to the Ruchi Pradan Marg. We have discussed the stages that the devotee goes through in the Vichar Pradan Marg. So our line is Ruchi Pradan Marg, but don't neglect the Vichar, because all of our acharyas, they have given very beautiful Vichar. It is only, the question is, which is Pradan, which is prominent in the path. So there's Vichar in the Ruchi Pradan Marg, and there's some Ruchi in the Vichar Pradan Marg. But one is has more emphasis on analytics, and the other has more emphasis on taste in hearing Harikatha. So now, those who are guided by taste, they're not dependent for their progress on analysis. Rather, they're associating with devotees, and they're by associating with them, they develop faith, and they repeatedly hear, and they immerse themselves again and again in hearing the glories of the Ishtadev, the pastimes of the Ishtadev, the associates of the Ishtadev, and the methods of worshipping the Ishtadev, such as kirtan, arti, bhajans, all of these things. The devotee is immersing himself again and again. And by this, his chitta becomes steady. Because what is doubt? What is sankshaya? Doubt. It's very interesting that Patanjali says that the buddhi has 5 ritis. The consciousness has 5 functions. Praman, that is correctly recognizing things. Viparya, that is the misunderstanding, the phases of misunderstanding, and they are the 5 kleshas. Then there's a smriti, memory, and the kalpana, imagination, and nidra, sleep. So these 5 ritis of buddhi are also described in Srimad Bhagavatam by Kapil Dev. But for kalpana, imagination, or vikalpa, when the mind makes non-correlated thought constructs, then in Bhagavatam this vikalpa is called sankshaya. Sankshaya means doubt. Because anything that the mind will speculate, after some time, that non-correlated construct will be challenged. And you think, is that correct or not? So all vikalpas, all the ideas which are wrong and which a person is convinced of, one day they will change. And you can see this. If you study the life of any modern philosopher who has lived quite long, all their opinions and what they write when they're in their 30s and 40s and 50s, by the time they get to their 70s and 80s, they change their mind. Because vikalpa is unsteady. And so what is called kalpana or vikalpa in the Yoga Sutras is called sankshaya, doubt, in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the same thing. So, one way you can get free from doubts is by clearing the vikalpas through hearing. But another way in which the vikalpa goes away is by the sthir buddhi. When the mind becomes steady by diving again and again into hearing, chanting and remembering, naturally the vikalpas, which are a product of rajagun, they disappear. Tadara jastumo bhavas kama labha dayaste cheta eta anabidam stitam sattve prasidati. As one goes on practicing bhakti with faith and with taste, then the influence of the gunas is eradicated. And so vikalpa or sankshaya, doubts, they are product of the oscillation of the mind. When the mind stops oscillating, it becomes very steady. Then it becomes the Bhagavad Bimba Grahitva. It has the capability to catch the reflection of the Swarup of the Lord at the time of hearing, chanting and remembering. And then what doubt is there? Will there be doubt? A person who is internally having a vision of Krishna. Hare Krishna, and Krishna appears. Is Krishna God or not? So, this is why the path Ruchi Pradan Marg is not Vichar Apeksha. It's not Vichar, it's not dependent on this deliberation. But still, our acharyas have said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Doya Karaha Vichar Vichara Karile Chitte Pabe Chamatkar. Oh my dear friend, if you're interested in Vichar, then do Vichar, deliberation on the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if you do, then Pabe Chamatkar, you'll attain a state of complete amazement. You'll be struck with wonder. And so it's not that those on the path of taste don't do Vichar, but they're not doing the type of Vichar which is on this metaphysical analysis. This is not the main thing. They can also discuss it sometimes when it comes in the flow of the Katha of Srimad Bhagavatam. It comes again and again in the earlier cantos, and again in the 11th canto for steadiness. But even the Vichar of the devotees on the path of tastes is the Vichar on the pastimes of the Lord and the qualities of the Lord and the qualities of his devotees. It's not a doubt, or is the God a person or not a person? It's not a Vichar on what is the Janma, Yasya, what's the cause of the world. They have accepted, they know. And so their Vichar is of a different characteristic. So now example is given in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. There's Sutta Goswami Pad. He says, Susrusro Sradadanasya Vasudeva Kata Ruchi Syanmayat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtha Nishevanat. Punya Tirtha Nisevanat. Nisevanat means from the seva to the Punya Tirtha. So Punya Tirtha means the very pious holy place. Tirtha literally means the place where there's holy water, like a Ganga, Jamuna, Manasi Ganga, Shamakund, Radhakund, Kusham Sarovar. These are the Tirthas. But Tirtha, the word Tirtha can also mean Guru. So Punya Tirtha Nishevanat can mean by service to the holy place. That means a person goes on a parikrama to a holy place. And when he arrives there, then he can associate with Mahat, great personalities. Because in the holy Dham, if one is fortunate, he can meet with liberated, enlightened, pure devotees. And by serving those devotees, what happens? Susrusro, by listening and obeying them, Shradhadanasya, one becomes imbued with faith. And what's the nature of that faith? Vasudeva Kata Ruchi. Vasudeva Kata Ruchi. So this Ruchi, in this verse, in the context of this verse, it means the fascination, the interest. Because afterwards, the next verses will describe Nashta Praishu, Bhadreshu, and how to come to the stage of Nishta. So you cannot tell, by the context, you can understand that this verse, Vasudeva Kataruchi, refers to that initial interest, because we're discussing the preliminary stages leading to pure bhakti. So, and then the other meaning of Tirtha is Guru. So, Punya Tirtha Nishevanat can mean from Guru Pad Ashray, before the stage of initiation. When a person takes shelter of the Guru, then, and he begins to serve, then his tastes in Harikatha is awakened. So these two meanings are there of Punya Tirtha. So, another explanation of this Ruchi Pradan Marg is given by Kapil Dev in the 3rd canto. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido pavanti rit karna rasayana kata tajoshanat ashvavapar apavarga vartmani shradharati bhakti anukramisyati. Here, it is said, Satam prasangan. Prasangat. It is prasangat. Becomes prasangat. Prasangan mama virya samvido. By sandhi, prasangat becomes prasangat. So, Satam prasangan mama virya samvido. By the prasanga. Pra means prakrishta rupain, excellent. Not ordinary sangha. Here the difference between prasanga and just sangha means associating with the devotees who are the teachers of the Vichar Pradan Marg. Associating with those in the path of Vaidhi Bhakti. Associating with those whose aim and object is the Vaikunta. Sarupya, Shasti, Samipya, Salokya, and so on. Associating with those. But prasanga means the most excellent association, that is associating with devotees who are established in Raga Marg. So their katha is such, Mama Virya Samvido. It's filled with the virya, the potency of Krishna himself. In other words, when devotees sit and listen to the glories of Sri Krishna and his devotees and how they love each other, then this katha is actually Krishna and the devotees in that pastimes themselves. Abhinatvam nama namino. Just as Krishna is non-different from his name, his leela is non-different from the description of his leela also. And so there's such extraordinary power in hearing Krishna's pastimes. Samvido also means, samvidaha indicates that in this katha there's the power of samvit shakti. And so, Mama Virya Samvido, Bhavanti Rit Kana Rasayana Kata. For it is pleasing to the ear and pleasing to the heart. It is a rasayan. And it is full of rasa. So, by hearing, our ears become filled with rasa. There's not room for any other sound to go there. And the heart becomes filled with rasa. So there's no room for anything else. So here the essence of this verse is only by such association does the ear and the heart become rasa yukta. Rasa yukta, united with rasa. And then all other things are excluded by that. So beautiful. Another thing here is that because we're speaking about the stages leading. So here, Shraddha, Rati, Bhakti, Anukramisiti. First Shraddha comes, faith comes. And it gradually makes you qualified for the sadhana. And then Rati means bhav. And then Bhakti here means prem. So by association and listening, one goes through the stages of sadhana bhakti, bhav bhakti, and prema bhakti. Then why is it said Rasayana Katha? Because rasa will not be experienced until after bhav has appeared. So why Rasayana Katha? Because na vai janu jatu kachantra na virjan mukunda saivanyavad anga sangsritim smaran mukundangi upaguhanam puna vihatam itschenna rasa graho jana. Narad Muni said that if a person meets with devotees and begins to engage in bhakti, hearing and chanting and remembering, then even if due to immaturity they lose their way and they go back to the material life, but actually they are not undergoing material existence like other jivas who are in material life. Once a person has some experience of bhakti, then you'll never be the same again. You cannot go back to material life. Or you can try. But while you're there playing video games or watching a movie, you're thinking, actually I'm not happy. I was happy when I was in a kirtan. I was happy when I was hearing pastimes. I was happy when I was on parikrama. So vihatam itschena rasagraho jana means that here the word rasa doesn't mean that rasa that comes after bhav. Here the word rasa means prachanna rasanksa. An anksa, a particle of rasa, which is prachanna in a covered stage, is there. So the person doesn't have experience of rasa. But even from the beginning of bhakti, even the weak devotee who goes away, but then realizes there's no happiness here, I'm more happy doing, and he comes back. Smaran mukundan upaguhanam puna. Puna means again. Again he comes back. It can also mean again he leaves, but again he comes back until he becomes fixed. So the reason he comes back is because again and again he remembers the prachanna rasa anksa. This particle of rasa, which is not the direct experience, but a covered experience of rasa, which was imparted by associating with a Vaishnava who was really relishing the real thing. By associating with the Vaishnava, that is prasanga, then something is sankramit. Some covered portion of that becomes reflected in the heart of a person who has the moments of sincerity. And they can never forget that. And so they come back again and again. So, satam prasangan mama virya sambido. Here, sambido means there is sambit shakti. It awakens realization. And so the purport here is, if you associate, you only have sangha, association with those in Vaidhi Bhakti, it can awaken faith. It can awaken bhajana kriya, but it cannot awaken the experience of Ruchi. Because Ruchi is the first time when the devotee begins to have the anubhav, the realization of the samvitan ladini reflected in his heart. So, at first, when we're engaging in bhakti, in the stage of bhajana kriya, we're not having realization, which is caused by sambit shakti. But the kriya shakti, it's still transcendental. The kriya shakti of the Lord coming through the Guru is engaging us. So don't think that from the beginning in bhakti, yes, I am so strong and I'm doing everything. I am the doer of devotional service. No. Only because we associate with the Vaishnava, and Vaishnava looked upon us with mercy in his eyes and gave some instruction. So the kriya shakti is coming. And so we're being engaged. That's what it means. Being engaged in bhakti. When you engage, that means engaged by something else is engaging you. So bhajana kriya, the influence of the kriya shakti of the Lord, by the mercy of Guru, is supporting us. And the more we are focused on serving and pleasing our Gurudev, the more we can experience it. And if our mind has any doubt or goes somewhere else, then we become deflated and fall flat and have no energy and interest in activities of bhakti. So this is anishtita bhajana kriya. So only the bhajana kriya will come, but by sangha, but by prasanga, then what will come? Actual ruchi. And there'll be a small particle of that ruchi from the beginning. And that small particle of ruchi from the beginning means that you will not have so many doubts that you have to keep going back into the sadling and the Vichar Pradan Marg. Understand? There are some persons, 30, 40 years as a devotee, they're still trying to figure out, did we fall from the spiritual world? And they're just going around and round in circles like this for years and years, just doing vichar, vichar, vichar all the time. And a person is lucky if they know, no, we didn't fall from the spiritual world. Or if they're lucky if they have so much taste that actually doesn't really matter. Let's serve Krishna. So, that is a fact. If a person, Mahatmanastu mam partha, daiving praktishim ashrita, The great souls are under the shelter of the internal potency. And Krishna says, and they, knowing me to be the source of all existence, they serve me with great faith. They engage in bhajan to me. So Vishwanath Thakur in the commentary, he explains that even if a person does not have the perfect understanding about himself, the Jiva Tattva, if he understands that Krishna is God and engages in his service, he becomes perfect. This is the point. So some people think that this is the make or break of everything. If you don't know this exactly, then everything is doomed. But that's not the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita and Vishwanath Thakur. So don't get lost in that. There are many things about how the Jiva is anadi. He is in Maya forever with no beginning, which are very difficult for the intelligence to reconcile. Okay, but persons who don't have prasanga, they get caught up in this for decades and I cannot say, maybe lifetimes, if they have a deep sanskar in that. So move along. Try to hear in high class association about the sweetness of Sri Krishna. Everything will be realized, because there are many things which are achintya. In fact, everything which is transcendental is achintya. Prakritibhyam, prakritibhya param yatscha tad achintasya lakshanam. Everything which is beyond prakriti is characterized by achintya. It has that symptom. And so the path of Vichar Pradan Marg is very long and troublesome, and even it does not, you cannot attain the Raga Marg, Preeti, by that path. So here we're discussing Satam Prasanga, only in the best association. Even from the very beginning, such a Ruchi comes that takes you into the Ruchi Pradan Marg. This is the point here. So, those who want to have those persons who are Priti Lakshana Ichchuk. Priti Lakshana Ichchuk. Ichchuka means a person who desires. The bhakti which is Priti Lakshana, characterized by love and affection. Then they are not focused on the analytical path. It will not lead to that preeti. And so Prahlad Maharaj has spoken a very beautiful verse in his prayers to Lord Nrsingadev. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, verse 49. 7:9:49. Very beautiful verse. Prahlad Maharaj is praying to Lord Nrsingadev. Naite gunana gunino mahad adayo ye. Sarve mana prabhritaya sahadeva martyaha. Adyanta vanta urugaya vidanti hitvam evam vimrsha sudyo viramanti shabdat. So here, Prahlad Maharaj is saying that Naiti gunana gunina, all the gunas and all the controlling deities of the gunas and all the elements of this material world, all the elements and the senses, the gross elements, the subtle elements, all the demigods, Sahadeva Martya, all the demigods and the mortals of this earth, they all adyanta vanta. That means they all have a beginning and an end. Uragaya Vidanti Hitvam. And therefore, They cannot know you. Any material element, any subtle element that is mind, intelligence, ego, all the senses, all the demigods, all the human beings, nothing in this world can know the Lord who is beyond all the gunas and beyond all the elements. Therefore, in this way, Vimrsha Sudhyo Viramanti Shabdat. Sudhyo means those who have good intelligence, the pure devotees, the great saints, they are Sudhya. Sudhyo Viramanti. Viramanti means they stop. What? Vimrsha. Vimrsha means, actually Vichar. Vimrsha means consideration, deliberation on all of the elements and all of this analytical philosophy. They stop. Viramanti Shabdat. Shabdat means the Vedic philosophy, the Upanishads and so on. So Evam Varmishya Sudhyo Viramanti Shabdat. Knowing that all of the elements and all the gods and all the senses and all the human beings, they're all coming from the gunas, and therefore they cannot know what is beyond the gunas, the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Vedas which deal with the subject, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtraigunya Bhavajana, in Gita, Krishna said, the Vedas, Rig Veda, Samaveda and everything, they're dealing with the subject of this world and the three modes and so on. So you should rise above them. So here Prahlad Maharaj is saying, knowing that everything connected with the gunas cannot know you, Evam Vrishishta Sudhyo Viramanti Shabdat. So the pure devotees, Viramanti, they stop, they give up the Vimrsha, the study of the Vedas. That means studying the analytical portions of the Vedas, which deal with metaphysics and this type of Vichar Pradan Marg. Because all these things have a beginning and an end. But the Supreme Lord is beginningless and endless. The soul is beginningless and endless. Bhakti is beginningless and endless. So by studying the temporary things, you cannot understand the eternal realities. So then Prahlad Maharaj said, reflecting on this, the wise person, Sudhi, they abandon the Vichar Pradan Marg, the analytical study of the words of the scripture. So, and then Prahlad Maharaj prays, O my worshipful Lord, service to you consists of these 6 activities: offering pranams, reciting prayers, rendering personal service to you. This is called, he uses the word karma. He actually uses the word karma, but here karma means paricharya, paricharya seva. When Prahlad Maharaj says karma, he means paricharya seva. That is the personal services, bathing, massaging, decorating, feeding. So then they engage in archan. They engage in the karma smriti. Now here the word karma smriti means remembering the karma of Krishna, the activities of Krishna, like janma karma chame divyam. So here the word karma smriti actually means lila smaranam, remembering the pastimes of the Lord. So Prahlad Maharaj says, how can a person obtain bhakti to you, who are the goal of the highest sages, without performing these 6 different types of service? So essentially in these 2 verses, Prahlad Maharaj is saying to Lord Nrsingadev that those persons, the best sages, they give up the analytical path and they follow the Ruchi Pradan Marg. And in that Ruchi Pradan Marg, they engage in hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering prayers, and so on. They focus on this. They try to know through service. They don't try to know through analytics. Jnane prayasamudapasya namanta eva. Give up the ascending process and just try to hear Harikatha. By this, Krishna can be controlled. That means by this, by hearing Harikatha, one gets Prem, because Krishna is only controlled by love. Now Srila Jiva Goswami will describe that on both of these paths, Ruchi Pradan Marg and Vichar Pradan Marg. The person who was the Shravan Guru, that means just who you're listening to, later he becomes the Shiksha Guru, or the one who teaches you how to practice bhakti. He gives you Shiksha in the Upasana Vidhi, the rules and regulations on how to worship the Lord, in both cases. Acha. Also, now we've come to the... now a question comes. It is said in Shastra that the mantra guru who gives you mantra is one. There can only be one mantra guru. But in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, there, perhaps you know, there's a famous verse. Nyayai kasmad guru jnanam sustiram syat supushkalam. It means one certainly cannot get firm and mature knowledge from only one guru. So, how can we reconcile this? Because actually we see many persons in the Shastra, they had only one guru. Like Bhrigu Muni, so many sages. Even Vishnu Thakur said, I myself had one guru. That is a Radharaman Chakravarti. Oh, before he was hearing from Radharaman Chakravarti's guru also. But he said, I have one Diksha Guru and I followed my one guru to attain all perfection. So what does it mean that Bhagavatam says, Na ye kasmad guru jnanam sustiram sat supuskalam? By one guru, you cannot get steady and deeply rooted and complete knowledge. Whereas we see many examples, Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jigyasu swaim uttamam. It says to get the, inquire about the highest goal of life. Tasmad gurum, and that is in the singular. It's in the singular. So it seems that there's some contradiction. Shastra says one guru, and somewhere else says, one guru is not possible. You have to have many guru. So we'll answer this. You can think about it. This is your sadhana until tomorrow. We'll answer this question tomorrow. It's a very beautiful Siddhanta. Gaur Premanande.